You're listening to 50 Pirates in 50 Days on the Sports Objective Podcast. A new era of East Carolina football is here and will begin on August 31st when Mike Houston leads the Pirates into action at NC State. Between now and then, join us for a daily trip down memory lane as we experience Pirate football through the words of the men who made those memorable moments happen. Here's your host, Bubba Rosenbaum.
Welcome into the Sports Objective Podcast. Our 50 Pirates in 50 Days continues on, and we're very excited now to catch up with one of the best place kickers in East Carolina history, Robert Lee. Robert, welcome into the show.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time. Kyle and I are looking forward to catching up and talking about your time in the purple and gold. So let's go back to, I guess, the early 2000s and when you were coming out of high school there in Longview, Texas. And I know you, out of high school, went to Trinity Valley Community College, and we'll get to that in a minute. But at not at Trinity Valley, at Spring Hill High School there in Longview, you played 5 sports. Is that right?
I did. I played quite a bit in high school. A little bit of everything.
And I noticed football and basketball, baseball. So you played the big 3, and then also track and 2 years of tennis as well. I did,
and also not listed on that, I played roller hockey at the same time.
Roller hockey.
And then when we get to your East Carolina years, I know you played rugby, so we'll get to that as well. But I know also during your time there at Spring Hill, so you were a heck of a student. You were a Globe Scholar and Texas Scholar and so forth. So talk about coming out of high school, some of the decisions you had to make as far as college and what led you to Trinity Valley.
Well, academics were always important to me, and I wanted to be a petroleum engineer. I wanted to go to Oklahoma or Texas A&M for academics, but really my main goal, I wanted to play Division I college football at a big-time D1 school, and I was one of those guys where I had the talent, but I wasn't quite ready to make the transition from high school to big-time D1. I had gotten some smaller D1 scholarship offers, University of Louisiana Lafayette, Louisiana Monroe, Arkansas State. But I really had my sights set on some of the larger conferences. And academics were great. And so I got the opportunity to go to both A&M and Oklahoma for school. I could have gone to their engineering programs, got accepted, but football was really my goal. And so Trinity Valley was a good stepping stone for me to go and continue my athletic my abilities there and get that experience that I needed to make the move up to the Division I level.
While you were at Trinity Valley, obviously you were playing football and you were suited. What was the recruiting process like coming out of Trinity Valley to get to East Carolina? Did you have very many other offers? I mean, how did you end up in Greenville?
Well, so I went to Trinity Valley, played there for 2 years. Coach there, a guy named Mark Sartain. He was actually one of our rivals in high school. He was the coach for our rival team, and so he knew that I had a really good leg, and so he recruited me to Trinity Valley from Spring Hill. He talked me into going there, told me that I would be able to go on Division I after that if I had a couple good years. So it was his first and second year as the coach there, and we went 3-6 and 3-7 my freshman and sophomore years. And at JUCO, the shelf life's not very long, so they were already looking for another coaching candidate. And so I didn't get much help from the coaching staff as far as recruiting. I was a JUCO All-American, set some kicking records there at Trinity Valley my sophomore year. Had a great season. I was lucky enough to have a great snapper and holder, and just a good operation worked out well for me. And so what he did allow me to do, he wasn't able to help me with a bunch of recruiting, but he did allow me access to the coaches room, and he gave me the book that has, at that time, you couldn't get all that information off the internet. And so he gave me a coach's book that had all the Division I colleges, and it had the phone numbers to all the athletic offices, and gave me all the film equipment access that I needed. I made my own highlight tape, and back then, of course, they were on the VHS tapes. We didn't have Huddle accounts or anything like they do nowadays. And so I made my own highlight tape, and I got the old trusty PlayStation out. Back then we had NCAA that had the accurate rosters on them. And I was able to find all the Division I colleges from the PlayStation game that had senior kickers. And there was, I believe, if I remember correct, there was 52 colleges that had a senior kicker whenever I was coming out of Trinity Valley. And so
that's smart, utilizing what you got.
Hey, it worked, man. My dad paid for me to FedEx my tapes. I would call every school that had a senior kicker. I would use that book, get the coach's number, call them. I would ask them who the special teams coach was if I didn't know already. A lot of them already knew who they were. And I had a notebook that had every college on there, every phone call I made, and I would just say, hey, coach, listen, this is special teams coach down at Trinity Valley. I got this great kicker you guys need to take a look at. Let me FedEx you his tape, and you guys let me know what you think. And so they would give me an address. I would go down to the post office, FedEx them a tape, and then I would give them like a week, and I would call back, say, Coach so-and-so, did you get to see Robert Lee's tape? What'd you think of him? What do you think about maybe bringing him out for a visit? So I just did all my own recruiting like that. I kept good notes, and I was able to get in with ECU. As a matter of fact, the receivers there, Coach Kirkpatrick, he was he has been one of the many holdovers from all the coaching staffs, and he was a holdover from Coach Thompson's staff. Is that correct?
No, he was brought here by Skip. He was
brought here by Skip?
Yes, yeah, he was. He was, Bubba, when Skip hired, Kirkpatrick, was he coming off of being the head coach at UT Chattanooga, or had he been the OC somewhere when Skip hired him?
I believe it may have been Chattanooga, because he wasn't the head coach at Chattanooga, but for about maybe 4 seasons or something.
Correct. Yeah, I think it was like 3.
I think that's what it was. I think because obviously when we hired Skip, that was in December of 2004. So.
Yeah, that's right. I think Donnie had just got fired at UTC as their head coach, and then Skip brought him here as receivers coach.
That's right. Well, he was one of the first ones here that Skip had brought in. They didn't have a special teams coach yet, and so Coach Kirkpatrick had seen my highlight tape and taken to Skip, and they were waiting until they got a special teams coordinator in, and they brought in Greg McMahon, and Coach McMahon ended up seeing my tape and calling me and talking to me, and it just blossomed from there. I developed a really good relationship with Coach McMahon, and took one of my official visits up there to ECU and met Coach Holtz and the rest of the staff, and the rest is history from there.
Where else did you have a chance where else did Coach Lee get you a chance to coach to kick at?
I actually went to there was Stephen F. Austin University down here in Texas. I went down there because they're close to home. I've always liked SFA. I went to southeastern Missouri. Arkansas. I went to another Arkansas school.
Arkansas Little Rock?
Yeah. That may have been it.
Central Arkansas was, and that's where.
Yeah, it was Central Arkansas. That's who it was.
It all comes together. That's John Thompson's alma mater.
Yeah. Yeah, and John Tompkins, there was somebody from ECU staff that had gone to SFA that was on John's staff, and that's who I met. I was thinking it was maybe the line coach, but he was the head coach at the time at SFA.
Correct. Yeah, it was the D-line coach who got the head coaching job down there after at some point. I can't remember if it was right after Thompson got fired, or if he was from his 03 staff.
Yeah, he tried hard to talk.
So they were recruiting you at Stephen F. Austin by a former John Thompson assistant, trying to get you to go there.
Yeah, and I had already taken my visit to Greenville, and I had my mind made up, so he wasn't going to be able to talk me out of it.
And plus, you wanted to play Division I FBS football, and those were FCS schools. So
absolutely
gave you that opportunity. Plus, East Carolina was kind of unique. It is a long way from Texas, but you had the opportunity to play Texas schools.
That's right. That's right, and it was great because every time that we got to play a Texas school, I got to bring lots of friends and family that otherwise wouldn't have got to see me play.
And Robert, that coaching experience at Trinity Valley, is that something you still list on your resume?
Absolutely. I don't miss a chance to tell that story. It's always a good one.
Okay. I figured you might have a little George O'Leary in you. But hey, as long as it hasn't come back to bite you yet.
Not yet.
But so arriving onto the scene at ECU prior to that 2005 season, just talk a little bit about things. I know we had, I guess, at least in 03, maybe 04 as well, Cam Broadwell had been the kicker. So like your PlayStation told you, we had that vacancy. So talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get to the 2005 season, which was a tremendous one for you.
Right. Well, I luckily whenever I came to ECU, I was able to move right in with Ryan Doherty and Mike Yarton and Will Bland. They were my roommates at ECU my first year there, and you guys know all three of those guys they're tremendous human beings as well as athletes. And so they made me feel right at home. Ryan had a real good relationship with Cam. And so I actually came early and spent that whole summer working out with those guys, and Cam as well. Cam worked out with us a lot, so I kind of knew what to expect. Cam gave me a pretty good background, of how things were going to go and all that. So it was just that transition from JUCO to D1, getting in the habit of the way everything works and the practices and stuff. The coaching staff was real good that summer. Coach McMahon was around, gave us a bunch of good feedback and stuff like that. It completely different going from JUCO to Division I. Just the amount of, just the amount that you critique everything and break it down. You just learn so much more fundamentally at the D1 level than you do the JUCO level. And so that summer I was really, really spending a bunch of time with Mike and Ryan, just getting those little nuances and everything that I had to learn coming into that level of football.
So I know your first game as a Pirate was against Duke, and obviously we won that game by a field goal. Now there are plenty of plays you can point to, but I know you made a 32-yarder in that ball game. Then you also converted a couple of PATs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll never forget that first kick. I think my heart was beating out of my throat. I was just praying I could get that first one in and gain some confidence moving on from there. I had kicked in front of that many people, but it had been a really long time. And so that was a lot different for me going out there in front of that many people and being on the center stage at a big-time college football game.
Did you realize at the time when that game meant the Pirate fans that, we love anytime we can beat any of the in-state ACC schools, and we had been so bad the previous 2 years, and to open up with an ACC school, and Duke won't no good in those days, but still, they came into that game as like a 9-point favorite. So that game meant a lot to East Carolina fans.
Yeah, and I knew it did, and I didn't at that time. I didn't realize it. I didn't know enough about Pirate football and the background and history with all the other schools in the state. Of course, I do now, and it makes me appreciate it that much more. But yeah, at the time, I was just along for the ride.
Yeah.
And then so that actually it's a couple weeks later, because after that Duke game we had an open date, but then we went on the road to another ACC team in the state, Wake Forest, And I know against the Deacons, we were talking about this a little earlier off the air, Robert, you knocked in a 51-yarder, which was the fourth longest in school history at that point.
Yeah, and I was pretty excited about that. That's one of my favorite pictures ever. As a matter of fact, I jumped up in the air and Ron Doherty grabbed me and was holding me up in the air. You would have thought I kicked a game winner or something, but I mean, it was just a long field goal. I got lucky that day. I had the wind in my back and made a good kick, but that was a great atmosphere to play in up there at Wake. I really enjoyed that. They had a grass field back in those days, and it was really nice grass field too. So it was fun playing there.
A couple weeks later, you come back to Greenville. I don't remember. I don't remember if you had a big kick in this game or not, to be honest with you. But I do know it was your first chance to take on a school from Texas. Do you remember the game against Rice in Greenville in 05, early season? I think it was the second home game, and we beat the Owls. Was that special to you to beat a Texas school?
Absolutely, and you know what was even more special about it is I had a friend that played on the defensive line for Rice. His name was Courtney Gordon, and there's a picture from that game. It's one of my favorite pictures. I'm kicking. The picture was taken from behind the defense, straight on, and down there by the weight room, and I'm kicking towards the weight room. And my buddy that played at a rival high school, we went to church together, grew up together. He's jumping full extension, trying to block my field goal, and the ball is just over his fingertips going in.
That's funny, huh? All these many miles away, years. You're at East Carolina, he's at Rice. I mean, you're playing against each other, a guy you knew from high school. That game, nothing to do with you, but just comment on that game. I remember playing that game. Chris Johnson had a catch, a little pass over the middle. They were playing Chris out the slot, and he catches the ball. I mean, and there isn't a Rice player, a safety, a DB, or a linebacker within 20 yards of him as soon as he catches the ball. I mean, he leaves everybody. I don't know if you remember that play or not.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely remember that play. It's funny how over the years, stuff like that sticks in your mind. And, yeah, there's a bunch of big plays that you remember. That was one of them. I remember that. Chris Johnson, of course, has a lot of those plays I remember. Those couple
It's kind of
years.
fast.
Yeah.
And kind of like Kyle was saying earlier with that Duke game, that Duke game was kind of a microcosm of that season as a whole in terms that over the last 2 years under John Thompson, we had won a combined 3 ball games, and we were a much more competitive team. We won 5, could have won probably 7, and really finished the season strong. And I know for you individually, looking at that season as a whole, I mean, you knocked in your first 8 or 9 field goals as a Pirate, and then were 17 out of 19, and you made all 30 PATs you attempted.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. It was a great season. That was the best year of my career. Having the guys that I had around me just was extremely helpful. I couldn't say enough for the holding job that Ryan Doherty did and the snapping that Mike Yarton did. Both of those guys were just money. As a field goal kicker, that's where it all begins, is up front with those two guys. And then, like I said, having Greg McMahon as the special teams coach, that was the only year he was there. He moved on and went and coached for the New Orleans Saints with Sean Payton. He was there actually until 2 or 3 years ago. He finally left the Saints, but he had a good long run there in the NFL. And I mean, just one of the best coaches I've ever had. Outstanding guy. And he instilled in us all the confidence in the world. As a kicker, baseball pitcher, that's what you got to have, is confidence. And that's what that guy made sure that all of us had, and it paid dividends on the field.
Robert, take us behind the scenes in practice and just tell us what a typical practice for a Division I kicker was like, at least for you in those days. And obviously there's a science to it. You can't just go out there and just kick for 2.5 hours.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, so I actually coach kicking now. I work with high school kids, and I tell them all the time, kicking is a lot like pitching baseball. You can't go out there as a pitcher and throw your fastball 100 times in practice. It doesn't work that way. You're going to wear yourself out. And so you can only attempt so many kickoffs, so many field goals. And, every kicker has their own schedule and amount of kicks that they like to do and from this part of the field and whatnot. And that's something you just develop as you go through your career as a kicker, working with your kicking coach and different guys and seeing what they do. Same thing with pitchers. Everybody has their own little thing they do. And so we always started practice. We'd go out there about 15 minutes before the whole team did, and we'd have the special teams period. We'd already be stretched out. We'd start kicking some field goals and stuff. Then the whole team would join us, and we would have a quick 10-minute special teams where we worked on some field goal situations, worked on some PATs, did a couple trick plays if we had any of those in the book. I know you guys remember Ryan Doherty scoring that touchdown on that fake field goal that one time. You remember that? They snapped it to him. He ran right up the middle.
6 against Virginia.
Yeah. That's what we did. And then, so after we got that out of the way, the team went about doing their individual drills, and we would continue kicking for probably about another 30 minutes or so. And after that is when you got time to work on your onside kicks and anything funky you can come up with that might help you somewhere down the line. And then usually we would catch a quick break, and then me and Ryan and the backup punters and kickers, we'd all get together and play what we like to call field goal golf. And you take the trash cans that they got all around the field, and you just play golf with them, try to kick a ball in it from wherever in the field. You come up with your own holes and stuff like that. So, you got to do something to kill the time as a kicker, because you got to be out there. Coach Holtz wouldn't let us go sit in the air condition and watch TV like I'd heard they got to do before we got there. So we had to get creative with how we were spending our time out there on the field for sure after our kicking routine.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up, Robert, because I'm trying to remember if it was somebody we've had on or if it was Kevin Miller who kicked under Steve Logan, and I heard an interview with him on Pirate Radio here a few weeks back. But, excuse me, he said something to the effect of after they finished what they had to do, then they went in and ordered a pizza.
Yeah, it was Kevin and Cam, for sure. Kevin told me they used to order pizza all the time.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised Logan allowed that.
Oh, I know.
It doesn't surprise me at all that John Thompson allowed it.
Yeah, that surprised me too, Kyle. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, Kevin was one hell of a kicker. It could have been that maybe, it wasn't at first Logan allowed it. It was towards the end of Kevin Miller's career.
Yeah,
I can imagine that's probably the way it was.
Yeah, who knows? We'll have to ask Kevin about that. We're going to have him on the show here in the next few weeks with him being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year after a tremendous career, not only as a kicker but also as a Pirate golfer. So we'll have to ask Kevin about that. But I know after that tremendous 2005 campaign that you had, you earned a spot on the Lou Groza Award watch list going into the 2006 season. So talk about that.
That was really exciting. I finished as a semifinalist my junior year. I was really just short of attempts to make it into the finalist position that year. The three guys that made it had upwards of close to 30 attempts. And so I was really looking for big things going into my senior year. I had a bunch of preseason accolades. And like I told you, Coach McMahon, he left, and that was a big bummer for me because he was really who had been there for me since I'd come to ECU. And they brought in Coach Don Yanowski, and he just wasn't the same style of coach as Coach McMahon. He had a different philosophy on kickers, and it might have worked well for kickers at previous stops for him, but it just didn't work out well for me, and it was a little bit of a confidence killer for me. And you know how college kids are. I had a bunch of other stuff going on, and probably was having too much fun outside of football, and so I just didn't have my best senior year with all the preseason hype, but that's how it goes sometimes.
Right, like you said, during that 2006 season, you weren't as consistent as you would have liked, but I know you still managed to knock in 5 field goals in excess of 40 yards that year. So.
I did, and I was 14 to 23 my senior year, and Ben Hartman, I think he had 7 opportunities that year, and me and him we were both real competitive with each other. We were battling back and forth every week. We were competing for the starting job, and it was a tough season, but I still had some good individual efforts that I'll remember. The Marshall game, I believe I made 4 field goals that game. The UCF game, I had a really good game. So I did have some good games my senior year. It was kind of spotty. I just wasn't as consistent as I needed to be.
You mentioned that Marshall game. Wait a minute. I'll make sure I'm not getting my games mixed up. I may be getting my games mixed up. Where was the Marshall game in 06?
The Marshall game in 06 was at ECU. It was actually senior day.
Okay, I'm getting my games mixed up. It was the following year in 07, after you had graduated. There was a field goal kick right before halftime that I swear to this day was good, and it was called bad.
That was Ben Hartman. I remember that. So Ben and I were still roommates.
Okay.
After I got done playing, and I didn't graduate from ECU till 09, and Ben and I were still roommates.
Oh, wow.
All during that time.
So you became a doctor.
Oh, yeah. He was playing football, and I was playing rugby, and so I didn't have all that pressure on me that I used to. So I let him enjoy all that time, and I got to coach him from the stands.
So did he make that damn kick?
I thought he did. The ref called it no good, and Ben will swear to you till this day that he made it. But I could not believe that ref. And the post, they extend up high, but he kicked it so high, he kicked it over the post, and they called it no good. I couldn't believe it. It's the same way I felt that kick I missed against NC State, the last kick I ever attempted for ECU at NC State my senior year.
You can challenge that. I was kind of surprised Coach Holtz didn't challenge that. If you can challenge it, I saw Jim Grove, former Wake Forest kick coach, challenge a kick that was called no good, and it got overruled, and it was called good. So I'm kind of surprised Coach Holtz didn't challenge that call on that play.
But Could you challenge that at that time, though? I don't think that we had challenges back then.
Yeah, we did. Challenges started around that time. I'm pretty sure. Might want to double check this, Bubba. You're the stat guy.
I'm like Robert. I didn't recall that. I don't. You
don't think we had? You don't think that the rule was in play yet for reviews and challenges?
You may be right, Kyle, but I don't recall that. I mean I recall the kick, but I don't remember being able to challenge it.
No, he didn't challenge it. But what I'm saying is, you can challenge a field goal call. That is a challengeable play that a coach can have reviewed.
Right. I'm just saying back then that.
Okay.
I'm saying back then.
I was thinking in 2005 we didn't have video replay, but then in 2006 we did, because in 2005 I used to have to run into the Murphy Center to use the bathroom. But in 2006, Coach Clifford Snow would always take me over to the review booth, and I would use the bathroom in the review booth during the middle of the game.
That's correct. So that would have been 07. that would have been 07. Yeah. So we would have had review.
That's all I was saying. I didn't recall for sure. I wasn't saying you were wrong. I just didn't remember it. But I certainly remember that kick, because my family and we had made the trip up to Marshall, and we were just sitting there looking at each other. And when the official said no good, I said that was good.
Yeah, Bob, and I bet what it was. Just like you're trying to remember, we had review. It was year number 2 of review, and not only did the coaches not know all the rules on what could be reviewed or not, half the time the referees didn't. So it could have been such a thing that Holtz asked if that was reviewable and was told no incorrectly.
Right. Yeah, so that was one of those that just heads.
You know who we should get on to talk about that? Ben Hartman.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely love to have Ben on. Speaking of Ben, Robert, it's funny. He and Coach Holtz, you'd always see, and this can vary from player to player because every player is different, and the coach's approach has to vary because of that. But Coach Holtz would oftentimes, it became very well known. They would talk about how he would tell Ben a joke prior to the kick.
Yes.
And Ben referenced some of those after the fact. I would ask him about it. And so did Coach Holtz take that approach with you at all, or no?
Yeah, he did, absolutely. As a matter of fact, the one that Ben told you guys was the first one that he ever said to me. He was telling me to calm down. You know, it was always after a timeout. Someone called a timeout to ice the kicker, and he would always say, What did the coach, something about getting his quarterback? Why did the coach go to the bank? He wanted to get his quarterback. Yeah. That was the joke he always told me. Yeah. And then he would laugh, and that Coach Holtz laugh, you know what I'm talking about, where he snickers and everything else. And it wasn't that the joke was that funny. It was just listening to Coach Holtz tell it and him getting a kick out of it. It just seemed to calm you down a little bit.
Because I can remember when right before Ben hit the game winner out in Hawaii, I remember, I think that was the game, right, Kyle, where he blew him the kiss.
Yes, that was he indeed. Yeah, it was the Carolina game. He told him a joke, and then he did it again in the Hawaii Bowl against Boise. And then as Ben was running out on the field, Skip blew him a kiss, Hawaiian style.
Oh yeah.
Robert? What is your most memorable kick? Would it be that 51-yarder against Wake Forest, or would it be in another game?
Probably so. That 51-yarder against Wake Forest. I don't know, the West Virginia game. Whenever we played in Huntington, West Virginia, all three of those field goals I kicked that game. That was just an incredible atmosphere to play in, and we were in that game all the way up until the last minute of the game. I mean, we almost. I wanted us to get in field goal range so bad. I believe we lost that game 21-20 or something like that.
Yeah, it was like I want to say it was 20-15. Yeah.
20-15. Is that what it was? Close.
Yeah, up in Morgantown. That was the third game that year under Skip. I remember it well. So like you said, the defense played lights out that day and kept us in it. And I remember, obviously, the offense had its moments, but you knocking in those 3 field goals was huge with the type of ball game that was.
Yeah, and that atmosphere was just incredible to play in front of. That was awesome.
One of the funny things about that game that I remember, and Kyle, you'll laugh about this too. There was a guy right behind me and my dad, and early in the game, I mean, you could tell the guy was hammered, and he kept saying, "West Virginia, here comes the big time." And so probably early second quarter, the guy was passed out, and he didn't wake up until the end of the ball game.
Well, that sounds like a typical Mountaineer fan. If he was asleep, at least he wasn't throwing batteries at anybody's head. Hey, Robert, did you talked about it being a great atmosphere to play in? How were their fans? They're notorious for treating opposing players and fans terribly. Did you get any of the batteries thrown at you or any of that stuff?
I did, actually. They did throw batteries at us coming out of the tunnel, and they called us some purple unpleasantries. They had quite a few names for us, actually. I think that was my welcome to Division I college football moment, to be honest with you, because we'd played Duke at home, and then the following week after that,
at Wake Forest.
Was at Wake Forest, right?
Yeah, mostly Pirate fans.
Right, and so then coming out there in West Virginia and just seeing that stadium full of that many West Virginia fans was pretty awesome. And so yeah, Yeah, I you know, you know how those fans are. They called us all kind of stuff, but I just got a kick out of that. I thought that was funny.
That'd have been
What was
cool
your,
to have one of those batteries as a souvenir.
Yeah, I was just trying to duck and make sure they didn't go on my face mask.
So, hey,
What was your favorite win in East Carolina history while you were here?
Oh, probably the NC State game my senior year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 06, yeah. Andre Allison with the big catch before halftime. And then,
Oh, yeah.
to me, the second half, well, really the whole game, that was one of the most physical football games I think I've ever watched.
oh
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
and they brought in the extra stands for that game, and I mean, it was packed. It was an evening game. I'm pretty sure because of that game, ECU's not allowed to play a late game in Raleigh ever again, and that's why they're playing at noon this year. The Pirate fans were there early and stayed late, and it was an electric atmosphere for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then capping off that 2006 season, obviously not the result we wanted, but after winning 5 games in 2005, and you could tell the program was on the way up, we won that 7th game at NC State, and then solidified that spot in the PapaJohns.com Bowl against USF.
Yeah, that was, and we really had to battle the end of the season to even get ourselves in that position. You know, they made us shirts that season that said Road Warriors because we had to go on the road. I think 4 out of our 5 last games or something like that. We had to go play at UCF. Got a good win down there. Had to go win that game at NC State and took care of business there. We had. And at the time, those were some tough games for us to win, and we had really struggled on the road, and so to be able to get the wins we needed to become bowl eligible, you know, was amazing for me at that time. I had always wanted to play in a bowl game. I had missed out the 2 years I was at Trinity Valley, and then the first year we were so close at ECU. Lost a couple close ones, and so just to finish my senior season with a bowl game was, you know, the perfect ending for me.
There was another game during that 06 season that I remember well. Down at USM, we win it in overtime with the pick in the end zone. What do you remember about that game?
Oh man, the Southern Miss game.
Yeah,
that was the first game that I lost to Ben Hartman during the week.
Oh.
And I didn't get to kick, and Ben actually got to kick field goal in overtime. I'd never gotten to kick a field goal at the end of the game like that in overtime, so I was a little disappointed, but I was happy for Ben.
Right.
And that UCF game that you referenced, and the funny thing here in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we had Kyle Chase on for the 50 Pirates in 50 days, and Kyle Chase was talking about that pick 6 that Casey Ross had against UCF that kind of went a long way toward maybe not necessarily sealing the deal, but putting us in a good spot. And he threw the ball in the student section.
Yeah, I do remember that game. That our defense had a great game that game as well. I actually had I think I kicked 3 field goals that game as well. And you know, I was happy we got to play Central Florida whenever they were playing in the Citrus Bowl because I love history. I'm all about history and stadium. I love stadiums. I love the history of stadiums, and that stadium just has a lot of rich history. There's been a lot of sporting events that have been played there. And a matter of fact, when we first got there for our walkthrough, they turned the scoreboard on, and it was the USA World Cup score from 1994. For whatever reason, was still programmed into the scoreboard and popped up whenever we were out there on the field doing our walkthrough.
Wow.
Speaking of history, Robert, obviously your name lends itself to an easy nickname, the General. Was that given to you when you got to East Carolina, or did you come in with that nickname?
No, that was actually given to me. I really think it was Tom McClellan that gave me that nickname. Man, I love Tom. One of my favorite guys that I met at ECU. Great guy, and he, head of the media department over there now, and he just does an excellent job. Always has, and just has that voice, you know. And I came in and he started talking to me about, you know, he started calling me I think he was the first one that started calling me the general, and then they started using it in the media, and it caught fire, and everybody picked up on it. And matter of fact, a lot of my friends from East Carolina today still call me general whenever I talk to them.
So, Robert, I know we started off the interview. You talked about Donnie Kirkpatrick and the role he played in your recruitment. I know you have to be very excited about him being back in Greenville, and then also Coach Steve Shankweiler, who was on that staff with Coach Holtz.
Oh, yeah, man. Coach Shank, you know, his son, Court, was playing for ECU at the time. He was the backup quarterback and then moved over to the tight end position. And so I was real good friends with Court, and I got to know Steve a lot better outside of football. And the Shankweilers are just an outstanding family, and I have the utmost respect for him as a coach. He is an excellent coach, has great character. You know, just one of those infectious guys to be around out on the football field. And you know, Coach Donnie Kirkpatrick, he's not a real loud, outspoken guy, but whenever he speaks, the guys listen to him. He knows what he's talking about. He's been around the game for a long time. And I think he's one of those guys that teaches the little things that make a difference. And he's real big on using the right technique with your hands and feet. I always used to watch the receivers, and that's one thing that ECU always has. We may not have the biggest receivers, but we always got quick guys that can use their hands and feet and get open, and that has a lot to do with the way that Donnie's taught those guys.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
That's something we've talked about a ton on this podcast, and I said I'm going to let Kyle talk about it because I know that's something he really likes to point out, the way Donnie Kirkpatrick receivers block.
Yeah, exactly. That nobody coaches receivers to block like Donnie Kirkpatrick did. And I mean, I think that goes to show why so many of the guys that played for him have played in the NFL and have done well on special teams, because they know how to get up there and get after it. I mean, it's amazing. If you watch our teams with Donnie K, whether it was under Skip or under Ruffin, and you watch the way our receivers block downfield, it's remarkable.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, you know, especially in today's NFL, that's important. It's very important that those guys can block downfield because the types of offenses are running. And then you got guys that are down on the bottom of the roster, and they got to be able to play special teams. So, you know, it's just really special to have a coach like that at this level that pays attention to that type of detail, because that gives your team an edge that a lot of teams at this level don't have at that position.
Yep.
And Robert, obviously you're in Texas, back in Longview, but before we talk about what you're doing now, I wanted to mention the fact that the Pirates have a tremendous place kicker, a guy that's on the Lou Groza watch list entering the season. He had one of those tremendous years, much like your 2005 season, the year that Jake Verity had in 2018. He only missed a couple field goals, 2 or 3 field goals, and that's something that I think got overlooked because of the poor product on the field overall. But I know that's something that, with the way you follow the program, that you have to take a lot of pride in watching.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I told you earlier whenever I was talking to you on the phone that my wife and I are coming down there September 8th to watch ECU play Gardner Webb. And I can't wait to see him kick in person. He had a great season last year, and like you said, it kind of mirrors my junior performance. He was 21 or 23, I believe, last year. Had a great season, and he's gotten off to a good start in his first couple years at ECU. And I'm hoping that he can finish out his career the way he's come on in the last year. And you know, having a good kicker goes a long way for a team because they give you an advantage. And from what I've seen and read about him, we're in good hands right now at the kicker position.
I actually heard an interview with special teams coordinator Roy Tesh, and that's what Coach Tesh was saying, that he knocked one in from somewhere like 56, 57 yards in the scrimmage on Saturday. I think it's either in the scrimmage or in practice recently, but in a live situation, he knocked in that 56 or 57 yarder. So pretty impressive right there with Michael Barbour, what he did up at Marshall. I guess it was maybe in 2011.
Yeah, they, and that's good that he's getting that in live situations now, because that's what's going to give the coaching staff confidence to roll him out there during the game and say, hey, let's go ahead and kick a field goal right now instead of punting and flipping the field position, because we think we can get 3 points out of it. So, the more opportunities he gets to do stuff like that in practice and the more success he has, the more opportunities he's going to have to do that in the game.
Absolutely. And a few minutes ago, I referenced the fact that you're back in Longview, Texas now. So tell Pirate Nation exactly what you're up to, because I know you're coaching some football.
I am. So I got married. I married my girlfriend from kindergarten through 6th grade. We graduated high school together, and it's a great story. People love it when I tell them about mine and my wife's love story. But we got two.
Yeah, my wife. I got you on speaker right now. My wife just went, "Oh."
Yeah, so we reconnected when I came back to Longview. I moved back to Longview in 2011. My whole family still lives here, and I was ready to be back close to my family. Got a chance for an engineering job, which I got my degree in engineering from East Carolina. I was the second graduating class of engineers from ECU, which is awesome. They're building a great engineering program there, and I'm proud to be a Pirate engineer. So came back to Longview and started out as a design engineer for a company called Vessel Technology. I've been there 8 years this coming week, actually, and I moved up from the engineer and designer to engineer manager, and now I'm the general manager of the company. And so I'm pretty proud of that. I got a 2-year-old daughter, a 5-year-old son, and a 14-year-old stepson. So we got a busy household all the time. We're always running around from one sporting event to another.
Yeah.
Coaching my son's soccer team and his baseball team, and I coach my other son's basketball team, and I play softball and soccer myself, and so we stay pretty busy around here. And then I'm doing private kicking lessons for high school kickers somewhere in there on the side.
So I got to ask you, how did you end up getting back with your elementary school girlfriend and marrying her?
So we went to school together, kindergarten through 12th grade, and when I moved back to Longview, I ran into her out having some drinks with some friends, and I sent her a message and said, hey, would you like to meet up sometime? She had recently become single, and so we did, and we ended up sitting in a bar and talking for 4 or 5 hours that night, and then we just started dating after that. We got married a year later.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a storybook ending for sure. I'm sure a lot of the women out there in Pirate Nation will have the same reaction that Kyle said Jessica had.
A lot of awes.
Oh, yeah.
But, Robert, you've been very generous with your time. We certainly appreciate it. It's been awesome catching up. I know Pirate Nation will really enjoy hearing from you, and we'd love to have you back on sometime down the road, and we hope to catch up with you here in just a few weeks when you're in town for the Gardner-Webb game.
Absolutely. Absolutely, guys, and thank you for your time. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely.
All right, Robert.
And Pirate Nation, that is Robert Lee.
That concludes this edition of 50 Pirates in 50 Days on the Sports Objective. Remember, join us daily between now and game day as we'll talk Pirate football with players from various eras. All these interviews are available exclusively on SoundCloud and our YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe and follow so you're alerted when we post new content. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, go Pirates!